Welcome, 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 and back again for another episode of the Grown and Greek podcast. I am super excited. I'm excited for all of the episodes, but this one in particular because it's someone that's very near and dear to my heart that I've known like all my life. But before we get started, I would just want to welcome everyone to another show, and of course, make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, share the Grown and Greek podcast at Grown and Greek podcast. You can catch it on YouTube and of course listen wherever you get your podcast. And if you know a member of the D9 that you think that would be a great guest on the podcast, please DM me on IG at Grown and Greek podcast. So today, as I mentioned, this gentleman is very near and dear to my heart. We go way back to the same street in Alabama. We grew up on the same exact street, and he's really a little brother to me. And it makes me, it like feels weird to even say that because it makes me feel old. But I'm super proud to welcome to the Grown and Greek podcast, Mr. Byron McGowan. And let me tell you a little bit about him. You know, like I said, we grew up on the same street in Pell City, Alabama. He is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. He is a U.S. Marine Corps vet sergeant. He served in the Operation Iraqi War, so he is a person that we definitely need to thank for his service. He has many accolades, but today on this podcast episode, we're going to dive into something that I hope will be very helpful to others, because when I discovered that this was what he does for a living, I was like, whoa, hey, tell me about all of this. Byron is a legit farmer. He provides high quality agricultural solutions both in beef and forestry management. So welcome to the Grown and Greek podcast, Mr. Byron McGowan.
Thank you for having me, sis. I appreciate you. Long time no see.
And like, that's crazy because we did grow up on the same street. But it's been a while, but you've been busy. You've been real busy doing your thing. And I think one of the last conversations we had was me asking you about your cows, and you telling me you sell them and you sell parts of the cows, and this hunk of meat does this, and you take it and get it processed and all of that stuff. So you got to really dive into it because I think that, I don't know, if our audience really understands how important of a service that you provide, but it's fresh, it's homegrown, you have your hands on, and it's healthy. So before we do that, let's kind of go back. Remember Kappa Alpha Psi. You attended Jacksonville State University, and you were in the Operation Iraqi. So can you talk a little bit about that? I don't know how sensitive that is. The journey from college to serving in the military, and just tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so my junior year at Jacksonville State, which was 2004, was around the time, I guess the year before was 9/11. So I was a sophomore when 9/11 happened. Just had crossed the burning sands in the KSI, my love. And anyway, just kind of had a yearning to try and do more and try and affect change with just the world. Why I kind of took it as a personal endeavor, I really couldn't tell you why. I had a few other friends at Jacksonville State, one in particular who actually farms down the road from me now.
Okay.
He left Jacksonville State as a freshman, joined the Marine Corps, went straight to Iraq. So I started kind of researching then at the time, but I was still holding on to, well, do I want to still continue and go toward this corporate world and this corporate dream I had. And I mean, growing up next to me, I like outdoors. I like the
Yeah.
mud and squirrels and rabbits. I just like being outside.
Uh-huh.
So went and spoke with a recruiter one Thursday afternoon, and he told me how miserable the Marine Corps was. But he said, "Hey," he said, "it's not fun. You're probably going to go to combat because we're in the middle of the Iraqi war." So he didn't sugarcoat it. He was in Anniston on Quintard Avenue. He was very, very honest. I still appreciate him to this day. So I said, well, it's a challenge. And I kind of felt like up until that point, outside of pledging and KSI, I really hadn't been challenged as a young man yet. So I said, well, what bigger challenge than to join the world's fiercest fighting force, the United States Marine Corps? So went ahead, joined, was blessed. Everything went safely through boot camp, got in my unit. And sure enough, I was home, I guess maybe 3 months, got my first deployment orders pretty quickly to Africa. And spent 9 to 10 months there. I ended up doing a total of 4 deployments altogether.
Did you, Byron?
Yes, yeah. I did four different Middle Eastern stints. A couple of those were training missions, like where our final one, where I was training the Jordanian military to take over Afghanistan security as we were doing the Afghan drawdown. And all of this is public knowledge now, so none of it's sensitive or anything of that nature. So you can Google all of this. But so that's kind of what led me into the Marine Corps. I just said I feel like, I don't know why, I feel like I can kind of help change and help fight and defend and whatever it may be, whatever it was the Marine Corps wanted me to do. I just felt like I could kind of affect people's lives a little better there than I was, at JSU. As much as I loved being, big country at JSU, I love that. But I just kind of felt like, hey, I think I can do something else to maybe help America and my brothers out. And somewhere around during that time is where the passion for agriculture and learning more about forestry and animals and all that kind of started to brew as my Marine Corps career was progressing. I was promoting fast, things were going well, but I knew that this isn't going to be my end game. So what else do I kind of have a passion for? Had done some corporate work when I came out the Marine Corps and did insurance and other companies and stuff. And very, very brief snippet of a story. Some of my old employees at one of the companies I worked for, they always laughed at me because they said when the guys came to cut grass and trim bushes, I stood outside my office and were watching the whole time. And they'd always pick.
Not surprising.
Yeah.
Not at all.
If you know my daddy, you know.
Hold on. Yes, that's what. Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on, because that's what I was gonna say. So his dad is like certified. Everybody in our hometown knows his yard. Like you drive down the highway and you see the yard, and I'm telling you, you have never seen a more beautiful like grass. He probably gets out there and measures the length of the grass. That's like how serious, like for real. That's how serious he is about his grass. But Byron learned from the best.
Yes.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And he was. What's crazy is he I don't really remember you having to cut grass or anything like that, because I don't think Mr. McGowan I don't think Mr. McGowan played that. But I don't remember you having to do that, but you had to tend and make sure that you weren't messing it up. I do remember that part. Yeah.
He definitely I asked to cut grass a lot, and at some point I was given the push more there, and I was allowed to push more the front yard, and I weed eated one time incorrectly, and that's kind of what cut my grass cutting career a little shorter than planned. And of course, I wanted to do the ride more and all that, but that's daddy's thing. So I was allowed, to do a lot of push mowing and help with the cleanup and all that. Which, fast forward to now, as an adult, I'm very thankful for all of that. But yeah, I definitely always was hoping I'd get to do a little bit more in the yard than what I did. But looking back on now, because Dad laughs, he said I was always so busy speaking to people passing by that I couldn't cut the line straight in the yard. So it makes sense to me why he didn't have me on the mower. So it makes sense.
Well, see, and Byron was Byron, you were the youngest, like
Hmm.
youngest on our street. So, he was protected for real, but also we looked everybody looked at him like, he was a little brother. And to this day, as old as we are now, it doesn't feel like we are adults. It kind of takes me back, at least, to our street, and realizing where we came from. I'm really proud. I'm really proud, and I'm proud of you. But let's talk real quick.
Hmm.
About your stint in Africa, and then the other countries that you toured, and
Hmm.
how that kind of shaped your perspective, when you got back to, the States and stuff, before we dive a little more into, what you're doing now and how it evolved. So, tell me, like, some of the experiences and things like that you had with, I guess, the land, and, seeing
Yeah.
how things were over there with cultivating um,
Hmm.
land and soil and all of that stuff. Because I'm sure you probably were introduced to it a little bit.
Yes, yeah. So we were a infantry unit, and then we later transitioned into a anti-terrorism specifically unit. But for instance, the Africa stint, and then the Israel trip that I did, and Jordan and Yemen. On all of those, each of those areas had different ways of managing their agriculture because of different climates, different soil types, different types of demand for food in all of those areas. And one thing myself and a couple other Marines realized as we bounced from country to country is that we couldn't find the same foods and the same things in each area. So we primarily ate whatever the U.S. was providing on our fob or inside of our base. And they told us not to eat anything from locals, but we did. I mean, you spend 9 months somewhere, you end up building relationships with these people because you're there to try and affect change in their community, but at the same time, you're there in a defensive stance, but you also want them to know that you're there as a kind of a safe haven as well. A lot of these really good people are unfortunately embedded and sitting right next to some not so good people.
Mm.
So amongst all of that, you get to enjoy some of their food and some of their cooking, and learning different ways to prepare animals that I would not go to Publix and buy here. I
Oh,
wouldn't.
wow.
I wouldn't be, boiling goat, and I know a lot of people who eat goat. That's just my personal preference. That's not me, but either way, barbecuing crow and roasting different types of birds and stuff that we would never even consider eating here. And then probably one of the things, especially Africa in particular, that struck a nerve with me and made me kind of want to dive more into learning about agriculture and just the earth period was that we constantly saw a need for water in every part of Africa we went in. And we were in the portion that's near Somalia. So
Oh, wow.
most of the places that we were working throughout was kind of they were kind of low lying as far as their ability to receive goods from the UN. A lot of the goods, when they came in, were distributed in manners that weren't so positive for the community. A lot of the places that needed the goods couldn't receive them without, a lot of hurdles. So we got to see just how important something as simple as water is to a community, or to an elementary school or something like that. So, you know, real brief story, while we were in Africa, we were able to help build a very small soccer field for one of the local
Mm.
elementary schools. Now, I say soccer field, and it's not in the sense of a soccer field like you would see in downtown Birmingham, Atlanta, Nashville, wherever. I say soccer field is basically a whole lot of rock and stone, and it's just a wide open dirt parking lot that we were able to take rakes and use our hands and just basically get all the rocks off of it and outline it with some barrels or something and call it a soccer field. Well, to us and to our kids here at home, they probably look at it and go, well, that's just a dirt pad. But to those kids over there, it literally was just like building them a new FIFA stadium.
Mm.
It was just amazing the amount of just how it injected energy into those kids and their moms and things of that nature. So through watching that there and one and again in Israel, I got to realize it's like how important food is, and then I also started learning about how important food is and the types of food you're eating in reference to your kids learning and how they process things and their ability to stay awake in class and their ability to just do different things that are conducive to being a good student. That's hard to do when you're dealing with low nutrition and you're dealing with a lot of high sugar foods and things of that nature. Or like I'll get into later, how some beef is processed in a very quick manner at a lot of these larger feed lots that come from Mexico and other countries, Brazil and things of that nature. A lot of the additives and things that are added to that beef may taste great and it may get it on the shelf fast here, but what it's doing to your children and yourself and to your body isn't so great all the time. And some of it has a direct correlation as to why your kid is so lethargic some days at school. Seeing is that he ate that whatever, I'm not going to say a brand, but whatever type of burger it was that he ate that night before, and he got himself stuffed on it. Then that next morning he eats this bacon that comes from a certain provider or producer, and then by 9 a.m. he can barely keep his eyes open. Well, there's some direct ties to how his body is, processing that meat that he put in over time. But back to the Middle Eastern stance, seeing the different ways that food was handled, processed, sold, taken in, and even in some areas how food had to be straight up fought over to get it.
Wow.
Really, really kind of made, like I said, myself, and then there was another Marine that was my partner. He later on began farming pork. And it kind of made me and him both kind of go, you know what? I think we want to do something a little slower and a little quieter when we get home. Because being in an infantry unit in the Marine Corps is loud, it's fast, it's the way that they kind of build our team and our camaraderie. We pride ourselves on a sense of almost kind of a Viking type brotherhood to where we fight amongst each other, but when we come together, it's like a little Voltron, like we can take on anything on the planet. Well, living that way, like I said, it's you're living at a very high intensity level a lot. Um, you're very, very high vigilant all the time. So as you start to kind of look at processing out of the military, once some of us realized, hey, we're not going to stay 25 years. So what's next?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, me and my partner, we quickly said, okay, we want something a little quieter. I think one day I want a family, because I knew me going in and out the country every other year, every 2 years, that was not going to work very well with trying to meet a young lady,
Mm-hmm.
and especially trying to have a kid or anything. So farming is what I started looking at, which kind of seems crazy because I didn't have anything to come back home to that would have gave me a really good starter pack to farm. My one friend that farms next to me now, um, he has 189 cattle, and he was coming back home to an older mom and dad who had 20 or 30 cattle, and they were getting started. So it kind of worked out that he already had that plate to come home and start working with, and kind of a canvas of his own to work on that dad had set up. So needless to say, I had a tall task ahead of me to try and acquire land, acquire the knowledge, and just kind of figure out how do you even get in this. And you weren't born with tons of land or anything.
So let me ask you.
Go
Let
ahead.
me jump in and ask you this. I know you were talking about like the process and things like that you had to learn. So is it like science? Like I guess the process or learning about what you do,
Hmm.
is it science based, or how would you describe that?
Yes,
So
it's
people will kind of understand, you know, if they are trying to understand, you know, like how you were explaining the type of meat matters, but also the way it's processed matters, what's put into it matters, and all. And then, you know, we'll continue to talk about McGowan Farms, but
yeah,
we'll continue to
yes.
talk about that. But can you, like, you know, explain like that part of it?
Yes, it's 100% science based, and you can find all this information on the USDA website as well. But in correlation to how beef is grown and processed and how it makes it to your plate, just a brief kind of synopsis of it. With beef, a cow will take, and I'm just going to use corn as my example, but most cattle, it takes about 5 pounds of corn for them to turn it into 1 pound of beef on the live animal. So that means that that living cow in your pasture, he's got to eat 5 pounds of corn to put 1 pound of body weight on. Well, there's a lot of processes that go on in these larger processing plants. There's really only three primary processors that provide about 85% of the beef to all of North America. It's one of the problems that we're kind of trying to fix right now, like the Alabama Cattlemen Association, which I'm a board member of. It's something that each state's trying to work on, because these three big processors, they found faster, quicker ways to get that 1 pound on that cow. And a lot of the ways that they're using to do it, once again, going back to science, isn't a clean grain. It's not a clean piece of forage. And when I say forage, I mean grass, hay, what they're eating off of the ground. That's their forage. It's not clean. It's been had a lot of additives put in it, so that that cow, for a brief example, my cattle put on about 85 pounds per month.
Wow.
On a good month, my bull, he puts on about 85 to 90 pounds a month. If I
That's a male, right? A bull is
Yes,
a
a
male.
bull,
Okay.
that's a male. Yeah, and,
Okay.
and my current bull that I'm using to service all of my cows and heifers, he's right at 1,300 pounds. He's 2.5 years old. And with him, he has to have a certain type of forage. He's got to have a certain type of grass to be able to put that on in a healthy manner, so that himself as the animal, he's not dealing with joint issues and hoof issues and pink eye. And just like a human deals with all this different stuff, a cow deals with it as well, which of course makes it where me as the farmer, if he does get any of these things, I've got to start injecting antibiotics, and I've got to start doing all these evasive maneuvers to try and keep him healthy. So, back to the piece of beef that's coming to your table, these larger processors are taking processed pellets, and in that processed pellet, it's in a bag like dog food. In a lot of these processed pellets, they're compressed. There's a lot of different additives in it that come out of a laboratory and not out of the soil. Well, all of that directly relates to a piece of beef that's going to increase your levels of sodium faster than what you would like. It's going to increase, leading to higher blood pressure, leading to cholesterol issues and gout and other things of that nature. So that's why it's so important, especially when it comes to beef, that you're doing your best. And it's hard to background every piece of beef that you find, but do your best to find beef that has been naturally grown as best as possible. My cattle are grass fed, grain finished. I always explain that. And if someone requests one that's 100% grass fed, I have no problem with that. And what that process looks like is about 90% of their lifespan before they go to the butcher, they're eating straight, clean grass. The fertilizer that's used is actually chicken manure. So it's 100% a natural fertilizer that's going in there. And the land's cultivated simply by me moving the cattle around and forcing them to fertilize a lot of their own area. From there, when it comes down to about their last 45 days before butcher, they'll begin to get about 3 pounds, 3 to 5 pounds a day of a particular grain mix that just me, myself, I sat down and played with some different formulas and some different grains and some different additives to figure out what worked best for my cows that turned into a good tasting steak that didn't give you heartburn. And, and that's that's where it came from. And I have no problem. I don't have a cup of it here with me. I meant to bring a cup, but everything that even goes into my grain finishing is 100% a grain that you can walk out into a farmer's field and pull out the ground. It's not something that came out of a lab somewhere that was baked and cooked to make it taste good and all that, because all of those feeds that they make that has those elements in it to make it taste good and palatable for the cow, there had to be a chemical added to that grain to add that flavor. And typically it's not natural. With mine, I naturally add molasses to all of my feed. And I just go to the grocery store.
Yeah,
Buy
that's
basic
healthy
molasses.
too.
Yep.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yep.
So
Mm-hmm.
so I try to be as conscious as I can with what I put in my body, and for the longest time I didn't eat beef, and I had my reasons, I guess, but then I started back, but I try to be conscious of labels and things like that I buy, but I'm totally, and why I haven't patronized you before, but this is it. This it. This is it is totally convincing. I mean, it's totally convincing because it's healthy and you have your hands on it, and everything that you you're speaking about is conscious of the end product. And what you're putting in your body is not going to harm you, basically. And your explanation makes total sense, because you eat a big old steak and the next thing you know, you want to go to sleep. And from what you're saying, that's not supposed to happen. And so that is really, that's really amazing. Like, that's really, really amazing.
Yeah, and that's one reason why I'm a big advocate, not just because I'm in agriculture. I'm a big advocate for trying to shop local wherever it is you live, no matter what part of the country you're in. Because one of the big topics last week at our state cattlemen meeting was a lot of beef is coming from Mexico and other countries. But when you go into your local grocery store and you look at the package, it says USA beef. Well, there's some rules and there's some tricks to the trade to get your beef stamped USA. And basically what it is that as long as the carcass, meaning the animal after it's been its life has been taken, as long as the carcass comes across the border as a whole carcass and it's not butchered until it gets into America, it's still labeled USA beef. Now that cow lived his entire life in Mexico. He was fed in Mexico. Everything that was going on was there, where there aren't nearly as many regulatory, parameters up to make sure that this cow isn't just getting a whole bunch of different stuff pushed into him. But long as that carcass gets over here before it's butchered, when you go and you pick it up and it says USA Grade A Angus or Hereford or Wagyu or whatever it is that you like to eat, a lot of the times, about 40 to 45% of the time, that animal did not live his life here. And that is something that cattlemen here in America, we're trying to directly change right now, is to get it to where the butchers, the producers, the processors, the big processors are shopping and dealing with United States cattlemen. and not outsourcing. And they've got, and I won't go into it, they've got their reasons for outsourcing it to other countries and to Mexico and stuff. And of course, it all boils down to a dollar. There's a lot cheaper ways to raise cattle there than there are here. But once again, you and your family and mom and nieces and nephews and everyone you get around for your cookout, you're directly eating that beef. And even though it may have saved that processor some money, it ultimately can end up costing you money on your end due to the negative health side to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like with my farm, I tell people to stop by. I'm a big advocate for if you want to buy anything from me, and I try to control it as much as possible. I have any and everybody just running in and out the driveway, but at the same time, every now and then I'll have a customer that'll have a little bit more detailed questions, and I'll just simply tell them, hey, pack your kids up, come down Saturday. Like, y'all come down, bring your fishing rods, the kids can fish, and y'all can walk around and see where these cows are living, what they're eating, what type of area that they're defecating in, where they're sleeping at, what, just everything. You see the whole picture. Because at feedlots, it's simply a game of numbers at a feedlot. And feedlots are what pack your grocery stores with the beef. So you're talking about 700-800 cows being put into an area the size of a football field. That's a lot of cows. And they're simply being pumped with a whole lot of feed.
Yeah, and they can't roam and just live naturally. So how many acres? How many acres do you? Is that right to ask? How many acres
that's correct. So currently, between my current property and then the other pastures across from, there's 48 acres in total that we're currently farming, and getting ready to prep another 23 right now that currently has some timber and stuff on it that needs cleaning up, that we're going to turn into a hayfield area, so that we're able to actually produce and bale our own hay right there and not have to outsource that. Because currently right now I'm outsourcing a lot of my hay purchases to that friend I was telling you about, the other Marine down the road, because he's got access to a lot more acreage, a lot more fields. So it just works out right now. But ultimately, we want everything to be in-house all the way up to the point of the butchering. And even all the way up to the point of the butchering, I've got a really close relationship with my butcher. They're local. They're in Asheville. They are USDA inspected facilities. So every piece of my beef or any other farm that goes through there, a USDA inspector looks at it, signs off on it, stamps it, and grades it before it ever makes it to your freezer, my freezer, or anywhere. And that's kind of just one more step we try to take to give people a little bit of security, to know that they're not just buying this crazy animal out this yard that might have some of everything in it. Because I've seen some crazy stuff when it comes to people selling animals. Yeah. But either way, so that's the direction, kind of how our process works. A little bit of it beginning to end.
So if someone wanted to purchase some meat from, and go into becoming a regular customer and all of that, tell the audience how they need to do that.
Yeah, definitely. So we got a couple different options. So of course, one, since I know we're on kind of a social media platform right now, you can always go to our Instagram, which is McGowan Farms LLC. That's our Instagram handle, and on there you'll see a lot of the pictures from the farm, and you'll also see a link to where you're able to go in and order or see whatever we do have available, or when we will have something available. And then your other option is actually going to, and hope to not turn everybody a different direction, Easton Hauling and Tree, which is our tree and forestry management company. It's that website. On the eastonhaulingandtree.com, there's also a link and an inbox that directly gets to us and to our office, to where you're also able to submit. And typically when someone submits an inquiry, and actually your cousin not too long ago submitted one, typically when an inquiry comes through, I'll reach back out and say, hey, what are you interested in? And they'll kind of tell me, hey, I got 4 people in my family. We eat beef twice a week. How much beef do you think I need? Can I buy half a cow, whole cow, quarter cow? For most people, buying the large bulk sizes of cow a lot of times is a little overwhelming. It's a lot of meat if you buy a whole cow. So typically, I kind of have a conversation with the customer and find out what your needs are. And I've got some other packages customized for someone that just, if you're somebody you just like to grill out during football season, or you like grilling for the summertime holidays, I've got different size grilling boxes. And with those different size grilling boxes, you'll get, of course, different things. One box, say for, and I'm just throwing this out there, these are kind of some of my older prices, but say for like $175 box, you'd be getting 2 ribeyes, all of them are 3/4 inch cut, 2 ribeyes, 4 sirloins, 5 pounds of ground beef, a roast, and some short ribs. So for that $150 that you're paying, you're getting about a $200 to $225 grocery store value.
Oh, wow.
That's going to taste a lot better. And I have no issue with, especially if it's someone local and they come by, I have no issue with someone even looking through and picking exactly which cuts they want. And because some people like a little bit more marbleization in their steak, which is the fat content. Some people want more fat. Some people want less. Some people like really lean meat. Some people like it fatty. So that's the route
So
you would travel.
everything can be, I guess, customized,
Yes,
cut to
100.
order, cut to order.
Yes,
Okay.
100%. Yeah, if I had someone reach out to me a few months back and they said, "Hey, Byron, I don't have $2,000-3,000 to spend on a whole cow. I've got $180. I'm saving up. When can I do something?" I said, "You can do something now." And so we sat down, we talked, figured out what next events he had coming up that he wanted to cook for him and his wife, and wanted to do some burgers for the kids a couple times a week. And basically, I try to just listen to my customer and figure out, how do you live your weekly life? If you're someone like me, I eat a lot of steak. Even before I was dealing with cattle, I still have always liked steak. So someone like me, I would be purchasing more of a steak based package that may be a little more pricier. But like some of the local churches that have bought purchase from me before, they do spaghetti dinners for fundraisers,
Mm-hmm.
things of that nature, doing vacation Bible school serving spaghetti. Well, I'm able to go in and do 40 pounds of ground beef at $4.99 a pound, as opposed to when they're paying $7.25 a pound at the grocery store. And for me personally, I'm getting to help a church or someone locally that I personally know. But on the back end, what really makes me feel good is knowing that those kids that are at vacation Bible school or whatever it is they've got going on, they're eating something that isn't jam packed with grease, and it's something that's not going to negatively affect them. So, turning a very short answer into a really long one, the McGowan Farms Instagram, the Easton Hauling and Tree, both of those are 2 direct connections, and both of those also have our office phone number. And I think the Easton Hauling and Tree, somewhere hidden in there, is my direct phone number.
Okay.
So
Well, we won't put you out like that.
we won't put that.
I'll let them
Thank you.
come to me and say, "Hey, what's Byron's number?" Like, here you go.
Appreciate you. Yeah.
So, what I'm hearing, Byron,
Mhm.
is, we, like, you take pride in providing quality, but
Mhm.
for, us as the consumer, we should take pride in selecting our food.
Yes.
And the process in which you are so intricate with, providing the pristine, whatever you put in your body, it's going to be legit, it's going to be 100% healthy for you. We should take those same steps to make sure that what we are ingesting and what we are purchasing for ourselves is something that's going to preserve our bodies. So you mentioned Easton. We haven't touched on that, but Easton hauling and tree. What the audience doesn't know is you kind of famous in which is wild, but you kind of famous in Alabama. And we're gonna quickly touch on this, and we're gonna like move on. But you're kind of famous in Alabama for climbing trees, right? And cutting trees and like what? You didn't do that when we were growing up, man.
I
Like
know.
how that happen? How did,
Well,
how that you were in the woods? You we don't even have time to talk about like what a marksman you are, like shooting bow and arrows and stuff. Like
mhm.
Byron is country, I'm country. But we proud country folk. But yeah, how you get into trees, man, and how did that evolve? And where did the naming of your company come from?
Well, I guess coming out the Marine Corps, I needed to find something safer to do. So I said, let's get 100 foot up a tree with a chainsaw strapped to me. But no, it originally started once I kind of made my Marine transition back into full blown civilian life. And I was kind of trying to find my way and trying these different careers, and just nothing was just really clicking. And I've always had an interest in heavy equipment and logging and tree cutting and things of that nature. And, find out I used to hear my dad talk about my grandfather and what he did as far as cutting pulpwood and some of the work that they did. I never got to witness any of it, but I've always thought about it. So as I started trying to figure out, okay, I said, Byron, I don't think I really want to work for someone else forever, but what do I want to do? I want to be outdoors. What can I do? So I initially started out as just a excavating and land clearing business. I think I had a pickup truck and a little 5x8 4-wheeler trailer, a chainsaw from the pawn shop, and some rakes, and that was it. And I was a excavating company, and so I was taking on jobs. I was biting off way more than I could chew. My knowledge level was very minimal. Thank the Lord I made it through all of it safely back then, because the Lord looks out for babies and fools, and I ain't been in a diaper in a long time. So, but fast forward, I kept at it, and I got a little better and a little better, but I still wasn't progressing at the rate that I'd hoped. And I made friends with a gentleman named Gil Gray that owned a very large tree service that was doing really well. And he had a need for a land clearing guy to just be the project manager and run it and run that whole division. And I said, hey, I'll take it. I said, that's me. That is me all day long. And me and him, we laugh about it now, but I jumped into it. Wow, with minimal knowledge, but I still jumped into it. And I mean, it was at a big scale that I jumped into it. And this is why I'm a big believer in you can speak things into existence. And I know you can pray things into existence, because when I first got into it, I was way, way, way over my head. And somehow, some way, my projects always turned out right. It took a lot of extra time, a lot of extra effort. It wasn't as easy for me as it was some of my peers, but it happened. So along the way, I kind of got back to my old dream as I was working for him of, I still think I kind of want to do something on my own and be my own boss. And then here comes the name on my shirt. Here comes Easton. And then that's when I really got serious about, okay, I want to make something that I can leave. And not necessarily nothing monetary, but I just want to leave a place when I leave out of here. I want to provide a place that tree men and heavy equipment operators can come and call home, that they can feed their families, and they know that they don't have to deal with any mess and drug usage or anything of that nature. They can just come in and have a safe place to work and go home and feel good about what they're doing every day and get treated like their corporate people. That was one thing that I pulled from working in the 2 or 3 corporate offices that I worked in. We had a lot of perks in those offices. You know, we got breakfast a couple times a week, and there was coffee and, you know, Keurigs and all this other stuff and music playing. And just, it seems like as long as we were hitting numbers in those offices I was working in, we were taken care of pretty good. And when I got in the blue collar side of things, I was like, man, these fellas don't get nothing. Like they you know, I was like, this is kind of rough. So I came up with this crazy idea of, we're going to be a blue collar, hardworking company, but we're going to have some corporate benefits and perks for our guys. We're going to get them some paid vacation, and we're going to have them, you know, lunch when they've had a successful week, and Christmas parties for their entire families to come through, things of that nature. So that's kind of what led into Easton Hauling and Tree and where it is today. And just the hope of providing a place that not only my son, but their sons and daughters can watch their dads get up and be diligent and work every day, in the hopes that we set an example that when it's time for us to sit down and I pass the torch to Easton and whatever it is that he wants to do with it next, that, you know, he's got a platform to start with that unfortunately, not every kid has. I'm so grateful for everything that my parents did for me, and just the amount of hard work they put in to try to springboard me up there to where I could try some things. And they allowed me to fail, and they allowed me to win and come back and fail again and again and again. And they still stood by me. So for Easton and his siblings, I've always kind of had this dream of, when they are ready to start a business or go to college or whatever it is, I want them to be able to turn internal to the family business for their financing, for their knowledge, for their vehicle, for whatever it may be that they need. I don't want them having to go out and knock on every bank's door to get themselves in an immense amount of debt at a young age to try their dream. And I don't want them to be afraid to dream because of restraints. I want them to just feel like, hey, you know, Dad set this up for us, so I can go out here and attempt to be, I don't know, Easton's probably going to be a skydiving instructor or something with the way boy act some days, but but if they want to go out there and try it, they can. So that's where the company name came from. Easton Riggs McGowan. He's my son, and he is the driving force behind all of this. He reminds me when it's time to cut trees. He reminds me when he sees a tree that needs cut. And he even told the principal at school that they got trees at the playground that need to be cut, and she need to talk to Daddy. So he's a unique fella. So,
Well, so are you, and I'm just, man, I'm so proud.
Thank you.
I'm so proud, and it's not being proud of you, which I am, but I'm proud of you telling your story, because you know where we came from. You know, never, you don't know. You know, you don't know, and you don't know how the story is going to be written for you. But more importantly, you don't know what kind of impact you're going to have. And I'm so elated to know the impact that you know, are having, and you're able to share that not only with the D9, but the world, because your mission to do something to change the world is doing it, man. It's doing it. And so I so appreciate you being on the Grown and Greek podcast. This is, it's so surreal. It's so surreal right now, man. But thank you so much for being on the show. And everybody, please look up McGowan Farms on Instagram. Byron McGowan is his name, brother of Kappa Alpha Psi.
Yo.
You got to give me that diamond. You got to give it to me.
Yes,
and
sir.
Thank you so much, Byron. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. I've learned a lot, and I'm gonna call you when I get my money up, because you ain't cheap. You ain't cheap. You ain't cheap. I know you gonna take care of
I'm
business.
gonna look out for you. I'm gonna take care of you.
I know
Yeah.
this. But I love you. Thank you so much, Byron.
Love you, sis. Thank you.
And y'all, thank you so much for joining us for one more episode of the Grown and Greek podcast. And remember, make sure that you subscribe, comment, like, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. Wherever you get your podcast, listen. And of course, you can watch the show on YouTube. And if you know somebody of the Greek community that should be on the show, please DM me on Instagram at Grown and Greek Podcast. Until next time, thank you, Byron.
Thank you.
You can support Grown and Greek by subscribing to the podcast, shopping our exclusive luxury accessory line, or purchasing books from the D9 Book Club by visiting our website at grownandgreekpodcast.com. Don't forget to like, comment, and share on social media at Grown and Greek Podcast. Thanks for watching.